If Abercrombie is the new Aritzia, then Gap is the new Abercrombie. And I bet a lot of you are sleeping on Gap.
I'm gonna say it. I think Gap is the next Abercrombie.
It's Gap, the new Abercrombie. Today we're gonna figure that out by comparing the prices, the fabric, and the sewing quality. Usually I would do fit too, but because we are expecting these clothes are probably not gonna fit me the way they usually should, so we're gonna skip that for today and for the next few months. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Jen. I'm actually a pharmacist, but I make fashion review content here on YouTube. I'm also starting my own fashion line. This is one of the samples we got for the linen shirt that we're working on. And if you want to follow along, make sure you sign up for email updates with the link below, or you can follow along on our Instagram, Jennifer Wayne the Label. Exciting things are coming soon, guys. We're set to launch in June, so stay tuned. And now let's get into the video. I got about 5 things from each brand in different categories so we can compare them. And I tried to find similar styles from both brands. Okay, so here's the Gap pile and we have the Abercrombie pile. I tried to find similar items from both brands, but some of the sizes are not the same because some of the sizes were out from the Abercrombie side. So I managed to find a similar red dress. We're gonna compare their denim, of course, and also an oversized shirt. And I've also got a matching linen set. Let's start with the red dresses from both brands. This one's the Gap one. It has a bit of a curved neckline here, whereas the Abercrombie has a square neckline. Kind of looks like overalls. And this one's actually a shorter dress, and this one is more of a maxi dress. Looking at the prices, the Abercrombie is a bit more expensive because it is a longer dress, $136, and the Gap one is $108, but there was a 30% sale. Looking at the fabric composition, this one from Gap is part linen and part rayon. Here, I'll hold it closer. 58% linen, 45% rayon. This dress is not lined, as you can see. And on the inside, we see the hems are finished with a serger. So it's just an overlock. Looks pretty good. Compared to the Abercrombie, this is 98% cotton, 2% elastane, and there is a lining fabric. And the lining fabric is 98% cotton, 2% elastane also. So same as the shell fabric. On hand feel, I feel like the Gap one is definitely softer, and that's likely because of the rayon, whereas the cotton one from Abercrombie, this one has a bit more texture to the fabric, and it does feel a bit more scratchy. And there's my little girl just sitting there watching me. Anyway, back to the video. In terms of washing instructions, these are, there's Kobe. They're both machine washable in cold water. And in terms of dye retention, I feel like they did a really good job, both of these companies, to dye the fabric this very vibrant red. The only difference I would say is that the linen and rayon blend may be more prone to wrinkling than the cotton fabric. So let's test it out. I'm gonna give both a good scrunch if I can get Kobe to give me enough fabric here. All right, let's see. So left is Gap, right is Abercrombie. Let me just scrunch these together for a couple seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, to my surprise, the cotton one does seem like it wrinkled a bit more than the linen and rayon one, so I stand corrected. Now looking at the bodice, this hem here that curves, that's what's gonna make that room here for your breast. And that looks really nicely done. Ow. Whereas the seams on the Abercrombie one, these are not as curved, so that's not gonna give you as much room. So if you're bustier, you might prefer the Gap one. And just looking at some of the sewing here, you can see the stitches are pretty small and pretty neat on the Abercrombie one. The straps, nice and clean looking. Let's check the other one. Yep. I'm personally not a fan of this hardware because, as you can see, the straps are too small for the hardware and they do shift like that. I feel like they could have made the straps a bit wider to accommodate the hardware, or just picked a different hardware that actually fit the straps. On the Gap one, the straps also look really nice and neat. No visible stitching on the front. And on the back, you'll find that they included this shearing detail. So this is a technique where the bottom stitch is elastic, so it compresses the fabric and gives you stretch in the panel like this. This is gonna help with fit, but I find that if it's done incorrectly or poorly, it could make the garment look cheap. But I think this one's done really well. You can see that the panel is perfectly square, not messy looking. Yeah, good job, Gap. In terms of the zipper that they included here, so this is a side zipper, looks like. Oh, it kind of gets stuck right there where they have extra fabric. Otherwise, not bad. And then they did have the hook and eye here to make sure you can lock that zipper once it's zippered up. My dexterity is not very good. Like that. On the inside, we do see that they have an extra panel of fabric, likely to make the breast portion a bit less sheer. And you can see they matched the pattern on the inside as they did on the outside. So that's really nice. This is attached here and attached at every seam. So it's not gonna shift around. That's nice, especially for after you take it out of the wash. It's not gonna get all crinkly and scrunched up on ya. They also did a reinforcement stitch right there, just to keep that seam nice and flat. That's really nice. And on the inside, no complaints there. Yeah, looking really nice so far. On the bottom of the Gap dress, they included about 2 or 3 inches of an extra panel on the inside of the dress. I actually like this detail. I feel like the extra weight makes the dress not so floaty looking. So that's nice. And we see the stitches all across. Nice, small, even knee stitches. Straight as well, nothing skipped. Yeah, I'm liking what I see so far at Gap. And just to note, this Gap dress does not have pockets. So after the discount, this dress is $75, and I think it's good value. Moving back over to the Abercrombie dress, they don't have any shirring in the back, so this is gonna be not as stretchy, but there is elastic in the fabric, so the fabric itself has a bit of stretch. The back here, we see the zipper is a back zipper, really smooth. Oh, this bit of extra fabric got caught here, so really smooth otherwise. This zipper is considerably bigger than the Gap zipper, and we can see it's a bit smoother, but there is a bit of bulk right here that I'm not a fan of. It's from the extra fabric on the inside, so that's not looking too good. And the hook and eye right there. So this is what it looks like when it's zipped up and latched. Honestly, that's not looking the greatest because it's so bumpy, and the Gap is larger because the zipper is larger. But this zipper is nice and smooth. And it's about, I want to say, 24 inches long, a bit longer than the Gap dress because this dress is a bit longer as well. And also to note, there seems to be a couple stitches that came loose right there in the Abercrombie zipper. So not looking great at the zipper portion here. On the inside, we see that they matched the lining to the outside of the fabric in terms of the pattern. This fabric is the same as the outer fabric, so I'm not sure how comfortable this would be because it is a bit scratchy, as you can tell by the texture. The dress on the Abercrombie actually does have pockets, and for pockets, I always look for the bar tack at the top and the bottom of the pocket because these are high pressure areas that tend to rip if the bar tack is not there. So they did include that bar tack, although it does look a bit messy just because of that extra thread. Okay, let's check the other side. Okay, yeah, that one's even messier. If you see that. This one looks pretty good though. And this pocket fits about my hand, just about, so it's not a very big pocket. Looking at the inside of the dress, the lining does not extend the full length of the dress. It goes maybe to about your knee, and then the rest is unlined. And we see the inside similar to the Gap dress, finished with a serger overlock stitch. Really nice. This one doesn't have the extra panel of fabric like the Gap one, so this might have that floaty feeling, but it is a longer dress. That looks pretty good to me in terms of the sewing. The outside stitches look pretty good. They could have trimmed that a bit better though. Otherwise, looking pretty good. So in conclusion, I think the Gap dress has better construction overall because of the zipper and because on the Abercrombie one, the bar tack on the pocket wasn't the neatest. But everything on the Gap dress looked really good. To me, the Abercrombie one has some improvements to be made. All right, next let's look into the oversized shirts from both companies. The Gap one is called Big Shirt and the Abercrombie one is labeled Oversized. In terms of price point, the Abercrombie is $75 and the Gap is $90, but with the discount, let me just double check what my receipt says here. After the discount is $62.96, so it's a little bit cheaper. Looking at the fabric composition, they are both 100% cotton. See that up there? And machine wash. This is the Abercrombie one, 100% cotton and machine wash cold. Okay, let's compare the cuffs. This is the Gap shirt. It's a bit wider than the Abercrombie. And the Abercrombies look like that because it's supposed to be warm folded like this, so that the buttons are on the outside like that. So there's the two cuffs next to each other, similar buttons too. I prefer a wider cuff like this. I feel like it looks a bit more luxe, but it's personal preference. Now looking at the sewing on this, these buttonholes look really clean. Nice job, Gap. We see all the stitches are nice, small, even, neat. Corners are nice and sharp. I will say that the square corners are a bit more easier to construct compared to a curved corner, but I would say that both of these are done pretty well. A bit of dirt here, I think. Buttonholes look pretty good too on the Abercrombie. In terms of fabric, these feel pretty similar as well. Similar thickness, similar weight to me. Looking at the placket, this looks really nice on the Gap shirt. The stripes are lined up, nothing is crooked. The buttonholes continue to look really nice on this one. And again, that nice, neat corner. Yeah, looking good. Abercrombie, similar. Really nice, even stitches, straight all the way down. And that ends in a nice, neat corner. There's a bit of extra fabric here, but they folded it together and finished it pretty nicely. I will say that I wish on the Abercrombie one, they included more of this stripe on the placket, because now it just looks like there's an extra big width of no white stripe down the front of the shirt. Whereas on the Gap one, it looks like that pattern is continuous. Do you know what I mean? It's just a small visual detail. Looking at the collars, you can see that they're very similar. Everything's looking pretty good here. All the stitches, nice, small, neat, and even. There you go. This buttonhole should always be horizontal. See on the Gap one as well, and then the rest are vertical. At the bottom of the shirt, we're always looking for that bar tack at the high pressure areas, like these seams that have a lot of pull to them. That just makes sure that seam will not come apart easily. So this one actually does not have the bar tack. So this one is definitely easier to come apart. You can see if I pull it hard, that will probably come apart. So that's a bit disappointing for Gap. Otherwise, it looks good. Let's look at the chest pocket. So this one is a hexagon shape. It looks pretty nice, even on both sides. They match the pattern on the pocket as well as on the shirt, so that's a really nice detail. I always look for that. This is the Abercrombie. They also match the pattern up nicely, so that's nice. And this one is a square pocket. Looks pretty nice as well. So in terms of construction, I would say these two shirts are pretty similar, aside from the fact that Abercrombie added that bar tack and Gap did not. However, I do like the cuffs on the Gap shirt more. It's a bit wider. There's a couple of differences in the details. It's really up to you which one you prefer, but I would say that these two are pretty similar, and the Gap is about $10 cheaper. Moving on, we're gonna look at a sleeveless linen vest from both brands. This one's from Gap and then this one's from Abercrombie. The design is slightly different. The Abercrombie one has a diagonal closing, whereas the Gap one is more of that classic suiting vest style, just has buttons down the front. In terms of price, the Gap one, $108, but with a discount, it was $75, and similar to the Abercrombie, both $75. So I just unbuttoned the Gap vest to look at the inside, and it was really easy to do, but for the Abercrombie one, this one is really hard to unbutton, so just keep that in mind. The fabric of the vest is quite thick and the buttons are pretty small, so it is taking more effort to unbutton. Looking at the fabric composition, it is machine wash cold and it's a combination of linen, rayon, and the lining is 100% cotton, so that's really nice. It's going to be biodegradable. The Abercrombie one, let's take a look here. So actually similar, 55% linen, 45% viscose, and the lining, instead of cotton, they used viscose. And this one should also be machine washable. Yep, machine wash cold there. Looking at the Gap one, this one is considerably lighter in terms of fabric weight. And looking at the inside, so the nape at the back here, double lined, and then you see the lining attached expertly, I will say, down the front of the vest here, and then double layer of fabric where the buttonholes are to make them a bit more heavy duty. The buttonholes could be neater, bit of extra thread. Not the end of the world, but could have been better. This nice round corner looks really nice. There's a bit of give in the lining so that less likely to rip when you put it on and take it off. That's nice. The back here has a slit so that you have more ease of movement. And then here we have I believe these are plastic buttons. There is a single welt pocket in the front. They are sewn shut. I'm not going to undo it, but we can kind of see how wide or how big the pocket is from looking at the inside. About that big, probably will fit my hand comfortably. And does look pretty nice the way they constructed it. Let's look at the other one. Yeah, this one looks pretty nice too. There does seem to be a bit of texture on the fabric, so I'm not sure if this is going to be prone to pilling, but just something to note. Otherwise, I think it's really well constructed. Nice, breathable piece for the summer. Looking at the back, there's always going to be a seam in the back, and I just want to make sure that both sides look symmetrical. It could have been done better, I think. So starting at the top, but then towards the bottom, that's looking a little bit wonky right there. So yeah, it could have been done better. The back is not looking the nicest. Looking at the Abercrombie vest, this vest is considerably heavier. This fabric also feels softer, although I don't know if that would mean it's less durable. And they did leave more seam allowance, it seems like, because these seams are feeling quite bulky. Like, you see how thick that is compared to the Gap one, where all the seams were really nice and flat and thin. So yeah, lots of extra bulky fabric in the Abercrombie one. That's probably gonna mean that your clothes are not gonna lay as flat on your body, so not the best. These buttonholes do look neater than the Gap ones though, although I feel like they could have been a tiny bit bigger to make buttoning and unbuttoning a bit easier. Yeah, see, a lot of bulk for these seams. So this just makes the garment look a bit clumsy to me, but inside fully lined. They did include a extra button. On the back, there is actually a tie so that you could adjust the fit to your waist. There is no flap, so you might feel a bit more restricted in this vest. This is a plastic button as well, and then this around the corner, it's not as sharp as it could be. So I think in general, I prefer the Gap vest. It just feels a bit more lighter and a bit more better constructed. Like, the seams are nice and thin, not bulky, and these are just way too bulky for me. Considering that they're similar price points, I think I would go for the Gap one. It's a bit more of a timeless style as well. Whereas I feel like this could be someone's uniform. All right, moving on to the matching linen pants. The Gap one is $128, but with the discount, it comes out to $89.60, and the Abercrombie is $112, so this one's a bit more expensive. In terms of fabric composition, the Abercrombie one is 55% linen, 45% viscose, and the lining is 100% viscose, similar to the vest. Whereas the Gap one is 55% linen, 45% rayon, machine wash cold, both of these, so similar to their vest. So looking at both of these, we can see that the Abercrombie is bulkier compared to the Gap one, similar to the vest. Not looking great for Abercrombie. This is also looking a bit messy with the stitching exposed here. Belt loops look good on both though. We can see the Gap one has the visible stitching, but it's nice and straight. And then they did a conceal stitch for the Abercrombie. On the inside of the Gap, they chose to make the pocket liner this nude color, which is a bit interesting. And you can see that these pants are not lined, so I imagine that these would be actually quite see-through and sheer, especially since they're a white color. You can already see my fingerprint outline. If you're wearing colorful underwear, this is probably not going to work out. So there's that one. Compared to the Abercrombie, these ones are actually lined, to my surprise. So we saw on the tag that this was a viscose lining. So this is going to be a bit less sheer. You can't see much of my hand outline. Although there does seem to be some texture on the fabric. Not sure if that's premature pilling. And we see on the pocket here, they did do a little bar tack for the high pressure areas to make them nice and secure. So that's nice. And the pocket is not that deep. Fits almost my hand compared to the Gap one. Again, no bar tack, so that's gonna come apart pretty easily. They did do a bar tack on the bottom though, which is not the top. Oh wait, I stand corrected. There it is. And this pocket is a tiny bit bigger than the Abercrombie. On the back of the pants, we see that this pocket here sewn closed, but this is actually collapsing on itself, probably because of the lack of integrity in the fabric. This does look straight though, and pretty even for the most part, this welt. This one, however, is curved. See that? That's a little strange. So the two pockets are not even. That's not great. Looking at the Gap one, similar single welt pocket, but this one is laying much flatter compared to the Abercrombie. And they're both nice and straight. See that? Okay. The other thing I will look at is the bottom of the pants. So this has about a 2-inch seam allowance, so you could potentially make these longer if you wanted to at the tailors. And you can see here that the lining goes all the way down, so that's really nice, especially for a white linen pant compared to the Gap. This one has about 1.5 inches of seam allowance, and again, no lining. Oh, some extra threads poking out here, but not an issue. So comparing the two, I feel like the Gap one definitely has better construction. It looks neater, looks just tidier in general as a garment. But the Abercrombie one does have a lining, so that's gonna make it less sheer. So I guess the difference is, would you prefer a less sheer pant that's not as neatly constructed, or would you prefer something that's sheer but looks a bit more proper? And the Gap one is a bit cheaper too. Okay, now we're gonna compare the denim. So I got a straight fit jean for both, the 90s straight and the 90s relaxed high rise. In terms of price, the Abercrombie is $98 and the Gap is $99, but after the discount, it came out to about $70-ish. It's about $30 cheaper. Okay, let's unbutton these. So I actually expected both of these to be 100% cotton denim, but the Gap one right here, you'll see that it's machine wash and it's 88% cotton, 11% polyester, and 1% spandex for stretch. And then the Abercrombie one is actually mostly polyester, 70% polyester, 30% cotton. That is surprising to me. I have never seen denim that's such a high amount of polyester. Am I reading this wrong? Oh no, yes I am. So actually the denim is 99% cotton, 1% elastic. It was a pocket bag that was 70% polyester. Okay, just gonna double check the Gap one to make sure I'm reading this right. Yeah, so I'm reading that right. That is indeed a denim, 88%. So much higher cotton percentage in the Abercrombie denim. And that has a few implications. Synthetics like polyester has a bit of natural stretch to them, so that will be reflected in the denim fabric, whereas the more pure cotton denim fabrics, they'll have less stretch, but these will mold to your body over time, and the poly in these jeans will probably make this fabric a bit softer. So if you don't like denim that's too stiff, you might actually like the poly blend better. But with softness and stretch, these might not be as durable compared to the Abercrombie denim, and these might drape a bit better as well. All right, looking at the Gap denim, this buttonhole could be a bit neater. A lot of extra fabric here. Zipper, pretty smooth. I would say some distressed details. They're pretty standard. Bar tacks on the belt loops. Nice sharp corners. The Gap branding there. Tiny little pocket. These pockets are pretty standard for women's jeans. Fits about a hand worth. On the back, pretty nicely installed back pocket. Looks even on both sides. The belt loops are nice and straight in the middle and on the side. Looking pretty good. Bottom hem. Inside we see that pressed seam, rolled hem. Yeah, looking good. Pretty standard pair of denim jeans. On the Abercrombie side, Abercrombie is of course known for their denim. So same thing, bar tacks on the belt loops, nice and straight. Buttonhole could be a bit neater, but that's fine. This looks a bit slanted here to me for some reason. Just a little strange. Zipper. I feel like this one's a bit smoother on the Abercrombie denim. There's a bar tag here, which I'm not really sure the purpose of. Oh, I guess to keep these two pieces together. That was not there on the Gap denim. Pocket similar to the Gap denim, not that deep. A similar baby pocket there. More distressed, I would say, compared to the Gap pair. On the back, so this I think could have been lined up a bit better, but this is a thicker denim, so it's harder to work with. This I think could have been trimmed a bit better here. This extra stuff. But otherwise, straight, centered. Both sides look good. The back pocket, I feel like could look a bit neater, but acceptable, I would say. Same thing on the other side, looks pretty good. And this, does that look curved here, or is that just me? That's a little weird. But similar to the Gap denim, press seam, looking pretty good. So comparing the two pairs, the Gap denim is softer, it's a bit thinner. The Abercrombie is definitely thicker and more durable. In terms of construction, they both look pretty similar. So it's really down to your preference. Do you prefer something thicker, more durable, with less stretch? Something that will mold to your body over time, more cotton composition, or do you prefer something that's a bit thinner, a bit stretchier, but also the downside is it's likely less durable in terms of longevity. This is the mess I made on my floor here, but now that we looked at everything, I can safely say that Gap has better construction for the most part, especially for the linen pieces and for the dress, but the Abercrombie denim I think is still superior. So in conclusion, I think Gap may be the new Abercrombie, and it may be better and sometimes cheaper. And that's it for today's video. So what do you think? Is Gap the new Abercrombie? If you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments what other things you want to see on this channel. I'll see you next time. Bye.